Steve Young for the Co-Roundtable. This is mid-November 2022, and you may have read a lot in economic pages or financial pages about a decline in high-tech companies, great big high-tech companies, and layoffs. I was reading the other week, first of all, that sort of a comment in the Wall Street Journal, which says, you know what's cool? $1 trillion. That was the market capitalization of Facebook just over a year ago, right before the company decided to rename itself Meta. It has since declined by roughly $800 billion. That's more than the market cap of almost every company in the S&P 500. Now, what the high-tech companies, Facebook, particular Twitter, we talk about it, we've got Instagram, we've got TikTok, a number of others, have done, aside from creating a very large market share for a few companies, is to create what Shoshana Zuboff, I think, wrote the other year called the Surveillance Capitalism, where she was looking at, if you will, the downstream net effects of the internet on people, and the sucking up of data information by these companies from us as users and giving it to advertisers, so advertisers can try to sell us things, and the companies as intermediaries are using us as suppliers to supply things to their customers so they can make a big profit. And Facebook could have a market cap of $1 trillion. Well, the implication of surveillance, I think, is not good. And she's using that word not in a good sense. They're surveilling us. They know about us. And the question is, what can they do with that knowledge, and how much right and power should they have to surveil us and know what we're doing and what we're thinking? Now, recently, a man with a different idea, Elon Musk, bought the company Twitter. And there's been a big hullabaloo and changes about censorship in Twitter, and the advertisers are leaving it. He fired a bunch of people, including the lawyer, Vijaya Gadde. And separately, there was some investigation by, I think, conservatives who don't like what the FBI and the Department of Justice have been doing in trying to censor what they call misinformation and disinformation. So they filed under our laws a motion to have documents from the government turned over. One of the documents that was turned over was a draft report from June of this year, 2022, signed off on by, among others, Vijaya Gadde, general counsel for Twitter, and a number of other people from the high-tech companies who were part of an advisory committee to the Department of Justice. And the advisory committee was to study countering misinformation and disinformation. And the interesting thing in the context of a moral capitalism, in terms of the role of companies, looking at their impacts on society, and trying to think about what do you do with good impacts and what do you do with bad impacts. If you provide a service and other people, let's say you sell liquor, let's say you sell guns, and people come along, your customers come along, and they buy your service, Twitter, Facebook, whatever, and they do harmful things with it. They use the gun to hurt people. They drink too much alcohol, they have an automobile accident, they kill a mother and 2 kids. Or they use your internet platform to either negligently or intentionally or thoughtlessly send out mean things, stupid things, wrong things, in order to stir up trouble, or just because they're kind of stupid. What should the power of companies be? But then there's the power of government. And under our Constitution, people have free speech. And the free speech, in most cases, says you can say anything you want, as long as you don't cry, the famous phrase, as long as you don't cry fire in a full theater. But this committee was a combination of government and the private sector in order to come up with ways of countering what they decide was misinformation and disinformation. What they call for was, quote, research to develop models and methods for assessing the direct and indirect effects of misinformation and disinformation on society. Now, I'm prepared to accept that misinformation and disinformation will have a negative impact on people, on society, on politics. But my concern is, in a just system, who sets up the standards? Who decides what's misinformation and what is disinformation? If you and I disagree on something, who's right, who's wrong? You or me? Is the government to decide between us? Is Twitter to decide between us? In this area of speech, what is the moral way of proceeding?